I'm very thankful to the Doge movement in the US now because it's just raised the profile. I've really been banging the drum because I call it the biggest scandal you've never heard of. I've been trying to raise the roof. Behind the scenes, I've told newspapers, I've said, guys, this is like the biggest, it's huge. People obviously really do care. There's nothing that annoys people more than finding their tax has been wasted on these kind of studies.
Just a little bit. So I normally have my notes. Oh, these will go back and forward and make noise. They're so annoying.
Yeah.
I normally have my notes and then never usually look at them, but there's so many questions I know I have to ask you that I'm going to make sure I go back to them. I've only been looking at this for the last couple of weeks, really, and then I realised you've been doing this for about a year.
Yeah.
It's mental.
It's really mental. I mean, I've kind of got used to it as you can get. Actually, no. I always get surprised. There's always something more, but it's mental.
I can't believe. Well, is the US Doge thing? Is that the thing that's triggered Doge? The guy said on GB News yesterday. Is that the thing that's triggered the awareness for you for what's been?
Yeah. So I started writing about it in 2023. I just went down a rabbit hole. Long story short, I discovered that we'd spent money on a pregnant man study in 2 phases over 4 years. That's how long it takes to discover the intricacies of pregnant men. And I just went from there, really. And I've really been banging the drum because I call it the biggest scandal you've never heard of. I've been trying to raise the roof. Behind the scenes, I've told newspapers, I've said, guys, this is like the biggest, it's huge. And no one's been that in. Well, actually, my independent audience has grown a lot because people obviously really do care. There's nothing that annoys people more than finding their tax has been wasted on these kind of studies. But yeah, I'm very thankful to the Doge movement in the US now because it's just raised the profile and it also connects. There's a transatlantic connection there. So as the research evolves, people will begin to see that. But they've done the UK a huge favour by pushing this issue up to the fore.
Are you going to be Elon Musk in the next administration?
Yeah. Well,
swiping through.
I want to be, and I feel that I've been leading. There are now other like Doge wannabe players. Like conservatives actually, but they did lots of spending themselves, so I'm not sure they're the best place. But my Doge UK, so we're founding it at the moment. We're getting the website ready, and I work with a lot of volunteers, people helping me map stuff. It's evolved very quickly from me writing a Substack, blogging about it, to tons of messages from people wanting to help, despairing, people from the inside, like whistleblowers, to recruiting sort of geeks, I would say, in the most flattering way, really intelligent people that equally care about it and are now putting together like maps for me. And we do really want to tear it all out. And the good thing when you get volunteers as well is they're motivated. They really, really care about it. They're not just doing it, nothing wrong with making a living, but for them, it's their country. It's a fight. It's a vocation. So they work so much on these maps. And yeah, I do ultimately, I would not do any of this stuff if I didn't have an optimism at the end that we could tear it all out. And
well, it's happening at the right time.
Yeah.
It's happening at a time where everyone's really pissed off. One of my friends, quite a wealthy friend, is planning to leave the UK. And he said, I don't mind paying tax, but I'm seeing all my money spread out like confetti on absolute bullshit constantly. He said, I've had enough. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm leaving. And I think we're at a time where we're being hammered by new taxes and we're being told there's no growth, or what was it, 0.1% growth forecast yesterday. Everything seems to be particularly hard. And then you see all this money being wasted on absolute nonsense. As I said to you, I've been pricing them in pensioners. Everything that you've put in that I've been looking at, I've been pricing them in pensioners.
I love that.
I went for the average. So the pensioner winter fuel allowance was it was £200 if I think under 80 and £300 over. So I went to £250 each. So the Europe that Gay Porn built cost it's going to keep 3,367 pensioners cold this winter.
Awful.
Yeah, look, it's crazy. Okay, so you're actually building your own. So is this just a research thing you're building, or are you building it as a bit of activism to try and drive change?
Activism.
Okay.
This is 100% because I think my journalism has always teetered into activism because it's a lot of complaining about things I don't like.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the main thing, I mean, I've always wanted to audit it. I can't do that by myself. It's just too much. I've tried. There's so many. I've written hundreds of articles about it, but the sort of the techie team of volunteers are going to start auditing. Being able to automate instead of me going through manually, there'll be faster ways of getting it all out. And there are really two parts of what I want to achieve. That's number one, the audit. It's a bit like when you take over a business and you want to see. You've got to see, the business is failing.
Yeah.
In the case of Britain.
Yeah.
So the first thing you've got to do is say, well, what are we spending on? Let's have a bit, like Musk is doing in the US.
Oh, this is common sense. I was talking to my son about it. We have a football club. We have a couple of businesses, and every one of our businesses has this set of spreadsheets. And at the end of each month, I go line by line and categorize every single spend. I put it into a spreadsheet, and then we get the audit of the month, and we can see what we've brought in, what we've spent, and it's not even if we're not profitable. If we're not profitable enough, we go, well, why have we spent X on water? Why have we spent Y on gas? We're spending too much electricity. Are we leaving things on? And every single month we optimize to try and be more efficient and make money.
Yeah.
And then I'm just seeing, well, how does this not exist in government?
I know you feel. They actually personally, they make me feel like I'm an economic genius because I know what supply and demand is. I'm like, wow, I'm really good at economics, but only because they are so. You're like, how does the left just not realize how supply and demand? They just keep saying like, oh, well, how are we going to go for growth? But then they just overregulate, and that to them is how you achieve growth.
Well, there's nobody on the front bench with any business experience. Nobody on the Labour front bench has run a business. Even the Conservative front bench is heavily lacking in people with business experience. So if you haven't run a business, you don't actually understand what it's like to make payroll on a Friday or make payroll at the end of the month. You don't understand those things. So they think they need more money. Well, we'll raise taxes. They don't understand the implications on what that does to business or what regulations do. I mean, the stories I could tell you, the difficulty of trying to run a small business in a town is
goodness.
It's endless.
I know. It's like you're being punished all the time, as if like they just take money off people and they just make it very, very difficult to self-employed people are treated like crap. Everything's difficult, but their answer is always just, if anything's going wrong, it's just let's tax more, and they are going to run out. And I think because Britain's been, peaceful historically, and we've never really had it. I mean, it's getting bad, but
no, it's bad.
But we are going to run out of money if we continue on this trajectory.
No, it is bad. Or I don't want to name people, but I know multiple people, wealthy people who are leaving the country, and you try and talk to a left-leaning person, even a conservative left-leaning person, about this, and they'll say, well, good riddance. They don't want to stay in the house. Like, well, yeah, but let's not be a moron about this. Yeah. The Laffer curve is real. If you tax them too much, they're going to leave. And they're going to Italy. They're going to Lisbon. They're going to Dubai. They're going to places where tax is lower or doesn't exist, and they're treated like they're going to bring something to their economy, and when we're shitting on them constantly.
I know there's so many things. Although, do you know, part of me does wish that everyone wouldn't keep. I understand why people are leaving en masse, but we also need people to fight for Britain. I do notice it's quite endemic, this attitude of this is a failing state, let's just get out of here, or like telling young people it's a lost cause, get out of here. But if everyone thinks this, then it just we are going to lose if we don't even try. And we've got to, there are ways that we can try and take back control, to quote Brexiteers, but
that is happening, the work you're doing.
Yeah.
The work other journalists are doing, independent journalists. The work that certain political parties are doing. I think there is a hope. We've just got 4 years of bullshit to get through.
In a way, I think, there's part of me that wants Labour obviously to go as soon as possible.
Yeah.
But I also think that whoever's going to win the next election has to get their ducks really in a row. They have to we have to get all of this stuff audited, a new plan in place. And that's not been done at the moment. And that's not an attack on either Conservatives or Reform, but there's a bit of time to play with that can be used from Labour in power. But yeah, things are happening.
And you learn from pain.
Yeah, exactly. But things are things are happening. But I think historically what the right, and I say the right, but I generally just mean people that are normal, people just with normal views, like yourself running a business, people that just want things to be fine and not like this cold Venezuela. When people want to fight back the state and what's going on, it's very like revolutionary talk. They're like, let's take to the streets. But what's happened with this whole system that I've sort of been writing about and others have been writing about is it feels like we've been screwed over by Islington lawyers. We have we have Japanese knotweed, like state Japanese knotweed, by way of all this bureaucracy, human rights laws, all of this red tape. We cannot go and just take to the streets and be like, oh, everything's... And the right tends to write... They've been very good at writing articles about... And I know this because I used to be an opinion writer purely.
Okay.
So we can all take to our opinion articles and say, Labour are so awful and this is... But it doesn't change anything because you're not really getting to the heart of why things are awful, which isn't just that they're idiots or, I mean, they are, a lot of them, but they're plotters, they don't organise like the right. They have networks, they have funders, they are secretive, they don't think like a lot of people on the right, like, we would say that's a democratic outrage. You can't, this sort of attitude like about fairness that a lot of people have. The left, generally, what I've seen in these left-wing networks, they just think, if they lose an election, they just think, okay, well, what can we do to plot better next time? They don't think, how can we win the argument better? They think, how can we be even more secretive, get even more funds? They are real baddies, and one of their techniques, they have a series of fantastic techniques. And one that has worked so well is that, they're excellent deflectors. So they're always saying to the right, who funds you? Tufton Street, dark networks, Russian funding, and so the right are endlessly like on the back foot. They're like, ooh, ooh. Whereas the right are never charging towards the left and saying, who funds you? And that's the only way you'll defeat them, by turning it round.
Yeah, look, I'm definitely going to want to get more into that with you, but I want to get to this.
Oh, yes.
Let's get into this and identify the problem, and then I want to talk to you about the political stuff as well. But I do have a couple of questions up front. So one of the things I was thinking about with this spending have you got any actual stats on the amount of money that is allocated to this? Have you done any kind of audit of the total amount that's been allocated to stupidity?
Yeah. So the UKRI is perhaps the most stupid Quango I've found. That's the UK Research and Innovation, and that gets just under 9 billion per year from taxpayers. And the one that I would, if I was PM, I'd scrap. So the UKRI and also Arts Council England. So these are all Quangos, basically. The government wants to do, they've got this university Quango, UKRI, Arts Council England. You deal with the arts. That's the sort of attitude. You take that one. So UKRI, just under 9 billion a year. And their worst council is the Arts and Humanities Research Council. And that gets, so between 2022 to 25, that got £207 million. And I'll just read you some of the studies that and these aren't like, oh, you've taken the most rogue ones. These are very much normal for this body.
Connor, can you do the just the calculation in pensions for these? Also, can you just quickly look up what was the total savings by scrapping the winter fuel allowance? I just want to see where that's hidden.
So Arts and Humanities Research Council, the Europe That Gay Porn built, 1945 to 2000, £842,000. Understanding displacement aesthetics and creating change in the art gallery for refugees, migrants and host communities, 785,000. Perverse collections, building Europe's queer and trans archives, 135,000. Oh, you'll like this one. Milking it. Colonialism, heritage, and everyday engagement with dairy.
What hold on. What does that actually mean?
So this was, it actually went a bit viral. I think it was the Telegraph that broke it, but it's looking at milk, the dairy product, as a sort of symbol of colonialism.
What?
I know. And there was actually another really funny.
Hold on, wasn't there a porcelain one about that as well?
Yeah, this is the one I was going to bring up. And I found this woman, Victoria Berger, and she'd done a PhD on, I think she might have just recently finished it or still be doing it. So the PhDs, they don't sound that big a deal, but it's about £20,000 a year. And her PhD was using porcelain to interrogate white supremacy. Yeah, as a medium. And it's so funny.
But porcelain. I don't even know what that means, though. I know porcelain is very white.
Yeah.
But what? It's just...
What? It feels like they just started pointing at anything white, like your Starbucks cup or whatever, and then just deciding that it must be some sort of metaphor for white supremacy just purely because it's white.
But what is it? I don't even know what it means, though. What does that mean as a piece of work? What would she uncover?
Well, she did... Number one, she did... a working with whiteness workshop, and she brought in, there was like an EDI instructor in there as well. She'd obviously like consulted the special white spirits, exorcists or whatever of the EDI world, and then they all she taught all these students how to make clay, but also exploring the white. There's a really funny video. I'll send it over to Connor, but like this really dramatic piano music and sort of these students and this white one like drinking from her porcelain cup, like, oh, what does this mean? And then she did some performance art as well. And and in the performance art, she's standing on like clay sculptures, like white, like a series of white sculptures on the floor, and she stands on them and she says statements about whiteness, like whiteness does this, that's so bad, and then she stands on it and then it breaks as if she's like smashing white supremacy.
Okay.
And it's just, I mean, you know what, like it is a bit mean of me to single out these people. Like I put them up.
Is it?
I think they deserve it. I'm sure she took, she put her videos on private afterwards, but I strongly believe in this cancel culture for these wokies, because they've got to be pulled out of this brainwashing. They've all these institutions are feeding students, a lot of them taxpayer funded, this brainwashing of wokeism, and they have to be snapped out of it. And shaming is going to work.
We had Eric Kaufman in here the other day. And he identified the problem starts at school, and that's where you've got to deal with it. I repeat myself a lot on this podcast because things come up again and again, but I've just had an email recently from my daughter's school where it's they've announced that their EDI framework's coming. Yeah, I know, and I'm like, there's like this two sides of me. It's like, well, fucking let me out. I'm rubbing my hands and then thinking, shit, I can't embarrass my daughter here. But I don't know what it's gonna mean, but we're getting the EDI framework, which is coming soon. I just don't understand why these people are so fucking weird. Like,
It's
what
awful.
happens where I can understand some kind of arguments about diversity. I can understand the arguments exist and why some people want to have it, but we just go to the depths of complete weirdness where somebody's studying porcelain as a symbol of white supremacy.
It's overcorrection too far. Yeah, because diversity is not bad in itself.
No.
Like, it matters, and it makes me feel quite sad as well that now if people star in things, like, people might say, oh, they only got it because of diversity, and because the overcorrection is so crude. But you've just gone from one side of the spectrum, or have you? Not in every realm, actually. You haven't gone from. I mean, it's in some facets of society they were fairly diverse. Like, I would argue the music industry is quite diverse ethnically in terms of gender, But yeah, it really is the horseshoe theory come round, because now we're so reductive about, you feel so aware of everyone's identity and the intersections, and it's horrifying that they're doing it, in schools. I mean, I grew up in Islington in the 90s, and we were just naturally diverse, and we just didn't give children don't give it a second's thought. And then you've got these programs like this Channel 4 show that taught children about their white privilege, and it's just horrible. It's very tribal, because it's encouraging racialized thinking, but pretending to be the good guys,
Did you see Starbucks was it Missouri, Connor? In Missouri, they've been sued by the state for their DI program because it's racist. And it breaks civil rights laws. Yeah. And so I think some of this stuff is starting to, like, nature's starting to heal itself for some of this. But it's all, I don't understand why there's so many weird people. I don't meet this many weird people from day to day in my life. It's quite rare, but then you look at research like yours and there seems to be a lot of it. And I don't understand, is it pockets of it?
Well, humans are very herd animals. They're very susceptible to conformity, social pressures. That they've always had that pack mentality for evolutionary reasons or whatever, and so they do all that. There are parallels with Maoism in terms of what's happening. I mean, Maoism started in schools. The first victim was a teacher, and then it spread in the universities. And you have the sort of parallels you have is the teaching is very totalitarian. If you don't agree with it, like, if you go into your daughter's school and talk about EDI, like, you're the heretic. It's the big parallel with Maoism is the ostracizing of or like the fragmenting of the family, like the Red Guards. I mean, they were all very young. They were like early teens sort of thing, and Mao wanted to break up the family and traditionalism. And you now have that parallel with the trans ideology, because it's sort of, don't be friends with your parents if they don't accept this very extreme way of doing things. So it's all about breaking, fragmenting, shaming people. There's been a lot of shaming in the culture. People will say, no, it's not Maoism. That was so much, but everything starts from the origins of it, starts somewhere, and the sort of radicalization of young people. Like, now, if you look at Gen Z, I know that they've done some recent polls on Gen Z, and it's actually quite frightening, because they are just so radically left wing. Like, they've been brought up on this diet of it, and they just don't know any. Like, it doesn't seem they know that much different. So.
There's an undercurrent of based Gen Z.
I've heard. I don't even know what, like, based. That means you're quite cool, right wing, or
you'd be considered based.
Oh, really?
I think it's not giving a fuck and just saying what you think.
Yeah.
It's not conforming to the fear of being cancelled or yelled at or being told you're insensitive or whatever it is, when you would come out publicly and just say, things that haven't been considered socially acceptable. I was thinking, I was listening to you did your interview with Constantine and Francis before, and you were saying, I don't want to talk to somebody about a woman having a penis like I don't want to talk to somebody about flat earth.
Yeah.
That would be considered based.
Yeah.
Because you just don't give a shit.
I don't. To be honest, yeah, I've got sick of it. I've had so many people unfriend me over my beliefs, and I just got to the point in my life where I'm just like, I can't be asked.
The humble bee, a keystone species crucial to the survival of Earth's inhabitants. Here's how things would look if bees vanished. And here's how they'd look if humans vanished. But imagine if instead we became a keystone species by doing things the right way, by taking responsibility for our actions and becoming the solution. Iron mines the world's most responsible currency the right way. Because the future depends on it.
There is a group of, I think, traditional lefties, Labour voters. I think are also I'm noticing starting to say enough of this shit.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, because a lot of it is. I find myself thinking, what even is left wing? Because this doesn't look very left wing to me.
Well, this isn't traditional left wing.
No,
We had George Galloway in here. That to me is traditional left wing. William Clouston, traditional left wing, whereas it was about supporting the working class.
Yeah,
making sure the rich didn't get away with too much. That a lack of regulation wasn't dangerous.
Yeah, they're always hammering them. And I think recently I was, I've been writing a lot about billionaires that are interfering in British democracy. And I know that I'm thought of as a right-wing journalist. And I just thought to myself, how come I spend every day writing about baddie billionaires and I'm right-wing? Like, isn't that meant to be...
Maybe you can't put you in a box.
Well, yeah, I just think they're very blinded by that. Sometimes I almost think that politics is like on the left, that they go for almost like a personality rather than there's something about Sadiq Khan they find irresistible, and Alistair Campbell, and
Alistair Campbell's the one I don't understand. I really don't understand. I was talking to a Labour voter recently about it because I was just saying, I thought the rest of politics was really interesting when it first started because there was a clear separation between the two of them, but now it's just both of them crying and whinging about Trump constantly, and they've come together and their opinions don't differ much anymore. And I was chatting to somebody I know about this, and I said, and the other thing is, it's weird how so many people have just given Alistair Campbell a pass for the dodgy dossier and sending us into a war where like hundreds of thousands of people died. It's weird that he's legitimised by question time. And they were like, well, yeah, but, he does try and hold the conservative. I was like, hold on a second. We can't go, hundreds of thousands of people died. That to me is a reason to be cancelled. Like, what's more of a reason to be cancelled than saying a woman can't have a penis or being involved in sending us to a legal war? I think, to me, it's pretty obvious, right?
Yeah. So much of whether you're worth being cancelled is decided by a captured media. Like if you take the example recently of Keir Starmer and the voice coach, who they clearly broke lockdown rules. And people are thinking, where's Paul Brand? The ITV reporter that got Boris Johnson out effectively because of the Tupperware story. Where is he? Well, he's an activist journalist. He actually is.
Yeah.
So the only reason that what Starmer gets up to is acceptable is because the court of public opinion or the court of cancellation is run by the same people that share the same political views. So they're always going to hype up outrage when it's their political enemies versus...
Yeah, I think one of the problems is like these. It's when people convert their ideas into their identity, and I look at it even across the pond. I think there's some interesting things about Trump. I'm glad he won over Biden, but at the same time, I think it's really important for people to hold him to account now. He's making some big decisions. He's saying some quite profound things, like America should take over Gaza and remove the entire population to to Jordan and Egypt. And I think at some point you've got to stand back as journalists and go, hold on a second, that's kind of ethnically cleansing. And I support some of your ideas, but we really should talk about that. But I think people's ideas have become their identity. So if the person they support says something crazy, they'll rationalize it.
Yeah.
And at the same time, the people they don't support, they won't ever give them a little bit of credit.
Yeah.
And this is where it's kind of becoming like a little bit weird. That's why I think we just need more independent journalists who will kind of attack both sides and credit both sides.
Yeah. Yeah, people are becoming incredibly tribal. It feels like, Trump can do he's become this messianic figure, which is really dangerous because he's not, and also it's kind of, you can't expect politicians to do that much for you. This isn't normal. Like, they can't change your whole life. And people are like, but I was actually the same as you, but I just saw it as like lesser evils because I was really worried about
it's lesser evils.
but Kamala Harris and actually it does connect back to Alistair Campbell because some of the coordination I saw under the surface between the US and the UK, I thought it was not going to be good for that. I can explore what he's kind of been up to with he basically, what I found out Alistair Campbell had been doing is he set up this it doesn't sound like a big deal, but there's the mayor of London has this deputy mayor. He loves hiring all these deputy mayors, and there's one called Mette Coburn, certainly not a household name, but he had this youth democracy charity when he was a Labour councillor for Hackney, and he was Hackney's cabinet member for climate change and action. And I first spotted him because Alistair Campbell helped him set up this youth democracy charity. When I first ever found out about it, I was like, is that a charity? He flew all over the world, the United Nations, the G20, and what I realized was happening is that they were using, because this guy's kind of like a TikTok personality, sort of like get down with the kids. Alistair Campbell helped him set up the charity 11 years ago because he obviously saw him as someone who could help get disengaged youth voters to vote for Labour, basically. And Tony Blair partnered with the charity.
Of course.
And the US Embassy in London funded it, about $90,000. And they used it last year. They were giving young people free ice creams to vote in our elections from Ben & Jerry's. So they're a US company. And the long story short, because it's got lots of different parts to it, but the US and the UK, the Trump Green New Deal, or not, he's just got rid of it.
Yeah.
But the Democrats in the US the kind of crazy Democrats like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Squad, Bernie Sanders lot, like they had this Green New Deal. And to me, it just sounds like communism blueprint under the guise of climate change. And their hope, obviously they wanted Kamala Harris to win. And in the UK, they were trying to set up all the tools to create an alliance between these two. So Alistair Campbell was like the other side of that alliance to get the Green New Deal up and right with the councillor, with the charity. So they were hoping but now the US has lost, that completely changed. That's why I was like so desperate that Trump would win, because I could see that it's going to cut off this meddling that's looking really bad for us. But there's still, because the left never lose, they're like, Voldemort when he puts his soul in those Horcruxes.
I've never watched Harry Potter.
The thing is, I'm not even like a Harry Potter, but I
hate Harry Potter.
I know, it's such a geeky reference.
I love J.K. Rowling, but I've read like 4 pages of the first book. I was like, yeah, that's not for me.
Yeah, some people are really hardcore. Like, I'm not. But that's the only way I can do. Like, basically, the evil Voldemort.
That's the bald guy.
He like leaves pieces of his soul or something in a Horcrux, and Harry has to go around and defeat all the little soul fragments. And that's kind of how I see the left, or like, have you seen Team America?
Of course, I love it.
I freaking love Team America. But when Kim Jong-un like turns into a cockroach and then flies off in a rocket, right? So this is kind of like the left. Like, you could defeat you could kill King. Obviously, he's dead now, but like, in the film, the puppet, the Team America kill him. That's the left gone, like Kamala Harris or whatever. But then it comes out as a little cockroach and goes into a rocket, and you've got. That's the only way I can describe it.
Have you ever watched the deleted scenes in Team America?
No.
Okay, I'm not going to put it up now.
Really?
Google it later.
Oh my God.
What's this?
Oh, this.
Democracy in your hands. That's literally.
Your son is good. He's
He's
amazing.
amazing.
How's he done that so quickly?
He's incredible. Can you play that, Con? Look at the udders underneath, like a penis sticking out.
Oh, Coburn also became. Oh yeah.
Oh, this is from yours.
Yeah, this is him. A Labour councillor, where he was busy fronting Hackney's £61 million fight against climate change and also promoting a Green New Deal, which is actually a concept that the Democrats originally pushed. That's the Democrats in the US. And that brings me on to the US Embassy in London, because between 2020 and 23, they gave Metty Coburn's My Life, My Say charity £90,000 in dollars to help reach those young voters and get them to the polling station. And this year, in terms of the mayoral and general election and all the excitement around that, Metty Coburn was at the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change Future of Britain conference, and this was attended by Wes Streetingham.
It's just well, this is the interesting thing about the USAID. They essentially shutting it down. I think I read they went from 14,000 employees to like 300. It looked to me, when I started to see the projects they were closing down, it was a network of left-wing ideas, funding left-wing ideas, which I was kind of aware of from a visit when I went to El Salvador, because I met the USAID team there, and I was aware of some of the projects that they were doing in the country. But it just seems like a network of left-wing ideas that spread across the globe to spread influence and dominate the media. But I think the whole thing's just backfired now.
Yeah, it's like a patronage network of leftists helping each other and cementing their, like for instance, the Fabians. I didn't know much about the Fabians, this left-wing wing, until people kept telling me on Twitter, like, look into the Fabians. But they don't
Tell me, I don't know.
Well, they're this old sort of wing of left-wingers that they don't believe in revolutions or like overthrow, which is very nice of them. But they believe in sort of gradual, like embedding themselves and doing slow little steps towards revolution. And that's kind of what the left have done. Basically, they've, people talk about they've got institutional power, they've taken over. But and I knew this a few years ago, but I just thought it meant a few people in the office are a bit left wing and in the civil service. I had no idea what it actually meant, that it's like a shadow state of these NGOs and government slowly getting more and more left wing, more of their people in everywhere, and creating systems of flowing money to each other. And that, I think, and this all connects to woke waste, because it's there's some of it's taxpayer funded, some of it is these random philanthropists, these billionaires flowing
Soros
money,
people.
Soros. There's all sorts of foreign funding on the left, and they do not want to talk about it. They would rather just shout about Elon Musk. But it's the philanthropy is really the word that I cannot stand, because and foundations, because what it allows the people like Bill Gates have had reputations for ages as sort of like him walking in Africa, like holding children's hands, like saving the world. He's the philanthropist, but actually they're just meddlers. They're foreign interference galore. They're just addicted to power. And all of their philanthropy is about, so like there's one philanthropist, sorry, I love saying it in this voice, called Lisbeth Rousing, and she's part of the Tetra Pak family. It's like some sort of God, I actually don't even know. It's some sort of like lunchbox thing. People watching will be like, you know what Tetra Pak is. But she's a billionaire heiress, and her family it's just these people that are just like, I don't know what to do with my money. I've got loads of it. But she invests in Britain quite a lot. So she funds the Good Law Project, the awful Joylan Morgan, and she funds Ed Miliband.
Oh God.
And she funds Steve Reed, who's like the environmental minister or secretary or something like that. And you have to wonder, because Elizabeth Rousing believes in rewilding and all these kind of hippie like concepts, and then you see Labour like going for farmers and land, and you have to wonder like what, they don't give them that money, but she's given them like hundreds of thousands of pounds each, and she's going to want something back. And then you've got obviously Dale Vince.
Oh God, I was about to ask you about him.
Yeah, he funds Labour.
He funds Labour and they fund him.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm scared about saying anything because he
sues people.
He loves suing people. I'm terrified about saying anything. It's
so annoying because when we started our football team, his team was the team I looked at, Forest Green. I was like, oh, you've got a team around an idea. That's kind of interesting. And then he was at Guns N' Roses when we were there in his leather jacket. I was like, this guy's kind of cool. And then I've just realised, no, he's a dick.
Oh, yeah.
He is a dick.
He is a dick.
He can't sue me for calling him a dick, can he?
No, hopefully not. Although he tries everything. I mean,
I called him something yesterday. We might have to edit that out. But he's I just look this circle. He
funds the Good Law Project.
Yeah, but he donated £5 million to Labour, I believe. I read.
Yeah, £5 million.
And Ecotricity have had 36 million in subsidies. Although I don't know if some of those came under Conservative Party. And he's still trying to maintain them, but there's just some kind of...
He's very politically active.
Yeah.
He funds groups as well as, people... The Labour Party donations are not the end story. He's funded Extinction Rebellion. He doesn't fund them anymore. But yeah, the Good Law Project are environmentalists, essentially, because they... they talk a lot about trans. They're a pain in the arse as far as a lot of like TERF women are concerned. But when you look at what they're really pushing, it's all an environmental agenda. And they're all, in my view, they're all these groups that all connect. Like Chris Packham, you see him somewhere and then it's like, oh, it's you again, Chris. He worked with this one environmental group for... I don't know if you remember the CAN bill, the Climate and Nature bill.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really dystopian. It sounded really nice, but it was pretty dystopian. And Dale Vince held a stall at the Labour Party conference for the main group pushing the CAN bill. And it said powered by Ecotricity. So that he was really pushing the CAN bill. And then you had Chris Packham. They're kind of like often together with the environmental activism. Chris Packham really wanted the CAN bill, and then you see Chris Packham like he does Led by Donkeys voiceovers. It's like he just runs off to all these different activist groups. They're always environmental. It's just like this little...
It's not little. It's a huge network.
It's a network.
What I can't figure out, Charlotte, is this... Like, how much of this is organic, just stupid left-wing people with stupid ideas who don't understand the consequences of their ideas, and there's just this big network of it that's organically built up, and how much is it actually strategically directed because there's a significant benefit to somebody at the end? I just can't figure this out.
It's very strategic. This is what the left do, because part of their organising, like, they want you to think it's organic. And there are some people, I mean, part of what they do is they love the brainwashed young people because they can use them as their useful idiots. So
Greta.
The more they can tell young people like, oh, your climate future, and make activism really sexy and attractive and like a sort of social currency, the better, because then they can all be brought out for all these protests. But the funder, there's these funders in the background, and then it just goes through layers. You get like the funders, the kind of celebrities and journalists backing it, and then you get the useful idiot young people, the sort of Titaniana, the youth activists of Extinction Rebellion. But
let me tell you this funny anecdote. So a friend of mine was telling me about their kids' school had a election. When the election was on, they did a kids' election. And naturally, the Green Party got a lot of votes. The most voted for party amongst the kids was Labour. And I'm going to guess the numbers. It was about, say, 200 of them. There were no votes for Reform. There was maybe like 75 for Green, which I'd expect. I expect a lot of kids to do that. There was one kid that voted Conservative.
Oh.
I was like, who is this awesome kid? I want to know who this awesome kid is.
cute.
But the point being is that I think when you're young, you can easily fall for left-wing ideas because they sound nice. We're being nice.
Yeah.
Should we help homeless people? Should we stop people driving cars and stop polluting the environment? Whereas Conservatives sound mean and horrible.
Yeah.
And so I think that indoctrination that Kaufman talked about happens in the school. It's how do you get it out of their system later on? Or how do you, it's not even get it out of the system, just how do you get them to have, think critically, have rational arguments on both sides? Because I don't mind this in the school if it's debated. You want the kids to debate it.
Yeah, I'm going to sound like an enemy against my own set. There's too many women teaching in schools. Women on aggregate lean more leftwards. It's just,
but you want women to be nicer and more empathetic.
Yeah, but it's not healthy anyway. Like, boys need they need male teachers. They need both. We need diversity in schools. But women do on aggregate lean more leftwards, and that is a big problem in school because, it's the kind of nicey nice politics and
there's also a correlation between wages and where you would vote, and we don't pay teachers well.
Yeah,
it's really underfunded. I don't know if you've gone the macro level on the government's budget, but we spend more on service in debt interest than education. It's like 100 billion right on debt interest, and it's about 80 billion on education.
Yeah,
and the schools are getting squeezed all the time. These state schools are now having to even fundraise themselves to cover costs. I love people who go into education, but I also think sometimes, why the fuck would you do this? You've got very difficult career progression. It's stressful, and you're paid terribly.
Yeah, no, they really need to, especially when they're spending all this money on all the crazy stuff.
I did have another couple of questions. The split between central government and local. What is the general split? Is it more central? Is it more local? Is it just
what in terms of work waste?
Yeah.
Well, central government. Central government is just the umbrella blob that hands out all the money, and it. I don't really know how to quantify it exactly, but local government, it dishes out their money.
Is there a way we can search my local government easily? My local council?
Yeah, I'm sure we can.
Where do you go to the procurement files for that?
Do you want to find what they've been up to?
I want to see what their local council is.
The best place I always find is Instagram to find weird stuff they've been up to.
Oh, really?
Because they do them more kind of quirky. If you go to the website, it's normally quite
the Bedford Council Instagram.
Yeah.
Do you want to have a look at some weird stuff?
A lot of them do have Instagram.
With a lot of this stuff, if it hadn't been woke waste, would they have spent it elsewhere? Is it a budget they have? So say a department has a budget. Here's your budget. It's 9 billion. Just go spend it, and therefore, they will spend it. I remember when I used to work in advertising, you get to sometimes December, and some of your clients will phone you up and say, "Look, I need to spend 200 grand in the next month because if I underspend, I'm not going to get that budget next year. Or bill me now, and we'll spend the money in January." So there's this weird incentive system. This is within private businesses to spend your budget by the end of the year, because if you don't get it next year. And so if they don't spend it, have they maybe got too much?
It's one of the problems is there's something called the Public Value Act, and it, basically there's an act that means that for procurement for councils, they can only give contracts to people that demonstrate that what they're providing is going to provide public value.
Pigs.
It's sort of is going to improve diversity or sustainability. So people have to apply in a really roundabout, the bureaucracy of it is very hard. You can't, so that boot some suppliers out of the competition, whereas the only ones that can apply are the ones that have the resources to fill in these long forms about how they're going to, make everyone hold hands and rainbows arrive when they deliver some light bulbs and things like that. So that is a massive issue. It means that there's only
the procurement process is
it's completely crap.
Okay, here we go. Bedford Council redefining green in the rainbow, exploring queerness in nature.
She, her.
Okay. The Higgins Bedford is proud to announce its celebration of LGBT History Month 2025, featuring a thought-provoking display and vibrant festival day. This year's theme, Activism and Social Change, will explore LGBT plus individuals' crucial role in shaping society and advancing the Higgins reception point. So that's the Higgins. That's where that pantry is, right, Con? So how would you then go to find out if this is come from a government grant?
It's very important that you don't lose this, okay? This is your inheritance through Bitcoin.
Let Bitcoin rip. Don't rip up your Bitcoin. Set up inheritance with Casa.
Normally, it's a bit of a mixture because, I'm trying to think, how would I know? Oh, these events are using public funding through the National Lottery, through Arts Council England.
Right.
So that will tell you that the National Lottery, which is slightly separate. Arts Council England is funded by the taxpayer. That's the one that's 445 million a year.
Right.
But the National Lottery is a separate budget that comes through, people buying a National Lottery ticket.
Right.
And,
See, I don't mind some arts funding. I like the fact when my kids were young, we could go to Tate Museum, we could go to the Victoria and Albert Museum, Tate Modern, and wouldn't be charged, and it was great. We used to do it all the time. I don't mind a bit of arts funding. It's just all the examples of arts funding that I've seen you show is really weird shit I wouldn't want to take my kids to.
Yeah, there's the issue. So the Arts Council England, the issue it's got is that it's a bit like the Public Value Act. Like, if you want funding, you have to embed it's got 4 investment principles, and 2 of them, so half of it is like, is it good, basically? And then the other half is proving diversity and environmental responsibility. So all the practitioners that want funding have to fill in their own big form, like, and so you can imagine, like, if there's an artist, just a solo artist having to prove that their diversity and, environment. I have seen one that brought up on trigonometry as well, so I forget, but he was called Prancer the Dancer, and he was like turning his dance moves into renewable energy. And that's clearly how he was like trying to prove his environmental. He was like, I'm not getting a carbon capture machine. I'll convert my dance moves, But the stuff, because they're so obsessed with what it means is that it's not like this sort of trans night out is like, oh, there's a bit of entertainment in that, like, for minority culture or whatever. It means that that's like the norm, and everyone else is not going to get money. So for instance, like Soho Theatre, which between 2023 and 26 has got 1.8 million in taxpayer grants. So it's put on shows, 52 monologues for young transsexuals, Patty Harrison, My Huge Tits Huge Because They Are Infected, Not Fake. It's another trans woman. And a comedy show where white audience members are encouraged to check their privilege at the door.
7,200 pensioners.
I like this maths. This is good.
Colin, did you find out what the total saving was on the winter fuel?
1.6 billion.
Oh, we can find 1. Hold on. You said UKRA is 9 billion.
Oh, sorry, 1.3 billion.
Oh my God.
So, that's what 12-13% of UKRA's budget could have been slashed and we could have had warm pensioners.
It's absolutely a political choice. They, the funny, well, not funny, but they're always going on about austerity. Oh, it's you would host, and then you look at this and you're like, my huge tit's huge because they're infected, not fake. They are not. They're just giving it to
random stupid shit.
If pensioners want their winter fuel allowance, they just need to say they're non-binary and put on a show about like trans leprechauns, and then they'll just get a grant.
Researching the pregnancy of trans leprechauns.
Yeah,
I'm kind of intrigued. I'd probably read that though. I'm just out of intrigue.
Do you want me to read the
What's
one of
the
worst
weirdest ones?
Okay, so this is like, I think most people know about the gay porn.
We've heard of
now.
Yeah, but on that, is this just some gay guy likes watching porn, or is
I don't want to who lives in Sweden.
So he's not even in England.
He's Portuguese and lives in Sweden.
So why are we funding him in what?
It seems like the biggest scam. Like he's not an anomaly. Like that, I found a Bolivian student decolonizing Bolivian museums in Bolivia. It's like they just get the grant and then they just go back to their home country.
Do you know what's really weird about this is that there is so little care in how so much money, hard-earned taxpayers' money, is being distributed. This real callous treatment of pensioners. And look, I'm sure there's plenty of pensioners could afford their fuel, but there's some that clearly can't. Then yesterday we had Noel Wilcox in here talking about the scandal at the child maintenance service. Do you know about this?
No.
This is wild. Can you try and find that page, Con, with that statistic with the excess deaths? So basically, the child maintenance service, their job is when parents separate, they want to try and assure, usually dads, are paying towards their kids. And they have a lot of difficulty. Some dads just don't provide the financial information, some disappear, some get paid in cash and don't do it. And so to try and pursue these people, they do a couple of things. One of them was they would inflate the amount that the dad is due to pay to trigger them to try and get them to provide the information. So they would inflate it by, say, 300%. I think it's one of these nudge. Do you know about the nudge unit?
Yeah.
I think it's a nudge unit tactic. And then also they would just get some calculations wrong. They might look at 6 years of, this is a huge scandal. 6 years of your income and pick the highest year. There was one guy, he was a engineer for the train company. Remind me, 41 grand a year this guy was on. They said he was on 76,000. He was left with pounds after paying, and he got so desperate he committed suicide.
Oh
this
my
is statistics.
God.
Where is it? The paying parent population of the CMS that have had arrears is approximately 53,700 from a total paying parent population of 435,900. So over 10%. In the 33 months from September 2017 to June 2020, to be in line with normal mortality rates for 30 to 50-year-old range, we'd expect 207 deaths. There were 2,860 deaths. An excess, basically 14 times the normal rate of deaths amongst men of that age between 30 and 50 who were sat with these large arrears with the CMS. And the problem is they gave them all these ridiculous enforcement powers. If you don't pay, we can take your driving license, we can take your passport, we can take you home, we can put you in jail. And so all these dads, mainly dads, and under so much pressure, so many of them just started killing themselves. It's a huge scandal. And you look and go, you are heavily pursuing working people with made up numbers to the point they're killing themselves, and then you're spreading this money around confetti to idiots who aren't. I don't think these are hard work. Well, they might be hard. Might put a lot of work into researching the Europe the Gay Porn Bill. That might be a lot of work, but that's work you're getting a grant for. These people are working people, and it's this.
Oh, it's
these
awful.
three bits. I'm trying to put them together and go, hold on, you are ruining these people's lives to kill themselves, and then throwing this money around like confetti and taking it. Just not.
It's appalling. They're so. Also, you even look at they're very good at clamping down on working people that don't have much money. Like even if if you go on the train and you see them with the ticket officer, like 5 of them coming on the train, making sure that no one's, obviously it's not good if someone steals, like doesn't pay their fine, but you're like, can we have that at the border, please? Or can we have that somewhere else? Like there's so many other people grifting, and that it's absolutely appalling. It's all directed at ordinary people instead of. It's really wrong. And one of the nice things about this now being more public, this research, is because I got so used to it, I kind of despaired in a way, because to me it was just like the most outrageous thing on earth.
Yeah.
And I just thought, does no one else care? Like, there's no one, there's no one. And now obviously it's like people are like, what the fuck? Because you almost like can't, it reaches some sort of believability threshold. Like it's so unbelievable that your brain almost can't, you're like, no, this can't be real. It's so bad.
Well, you put it in that pile of everything's just a bit shit right now. like I say, it's hard to build a business. Fuel's gone up. Your groceries have gone up. The pubs, there's less people in the pubs because they can't afford to go out. We've seen higher taxation. Like the NHS is every direction you look. Constantly seeing videos of people just going to Tesco's, filling up bags and walking out, and nothing happens to them. Stabbers, like in every direction. I'm like, there's so much wrong, and then you throw this in. It's just like, it's almost like, oh, here's something else.
It's the amount of scandals, because I just think there's so many scandals I could write about. I get so many people sending me tips about scandals, and I have to be like to them, like, yeah, that's a really good scandal, because for a journalist, it's like I'm having to reject good material. I have to say to them, like, good luck, because this is a really important story, but I just can't. There's just so much that I just can't.
Yeah, what can you do?
I can't take it on, and this. I'll give you the. Shall I read you this one?
Yeah, please.
Oh, this is the gay porn. The Portuguese man in Sweden studying gay porn, and his defense, by the way, will be, oh, well, we get paid peanuts, it's the university, because the grant system is basically, so they get I think there's like 2 or 3 of them researching gay porn. So, and one of them has done quite a few studies on it before. So they get their 840,000 grant, but the grant system for universities, they take a cut. So they really like grants, because every time they're like, oh, well, we need this for light bulbs and whatever. So he's had that, but he's also had, between 2019 and 21, he got given £194,000 for masculinity and the ethics of porosity in post-AIDS gay porn. And this was the modern...
What does it even mean?
I know. This was the modern languages department at the University of Exeter.
And when he gets that over what period?
So about 2 years, February 2019 to Jan 2021.
And how much of that do you think goes to him, of that 184,000?
To be honest, I don't know off the top of my head, but they'll say, oh, the university gets half of it. That's the sort of thing I've heard on Twitter.
736 pensioners.
It's crazy, but the abstract, so I don't even know how this is on a taxpayer government website. It says, pig is a term used by some gay men to self-define themselves in terms of their own sexual practices, which they regard as transgressive, pushing the limits of the body and its integrity through relentless condomless penetrations, stretching of the rectal sphincter, and exchanges of all kinds of bodily fluids, sperm, urine, saliva, etc. It is used...
There's more?
No, I'm like, what?
How many are there?
That'd be a good question. It is used in the names of hookup websites directed at gay men into fetish or extreme sex, e.g. nastykinkpigs.com or asspig.com, and often included as a pig head or snout emoji on usernames or profile text on gay hookup apps like Grindr, Scruff or Recon.
Hold on, is this the thing? When you see like the Pride event and you see people with those kind of pig masks?
Apparently.
This must be this.
Apparently.
Yeah.
I actually watched some of his video, like, they just had 2 men, like, in a sort of stable with some hay around them, and And also, I just watched. It's all online. It's like X-rated. When I post it on Twitter, I have to put like warning, explicit, because it's like porn. Like a porn star talking about loving pig.
I
Like,
saw some videos like Blue. There was some like Blue stuff going on.
Blues. Oh, what is that with the hands and the
Yeah,
lubricant? Oh, yeah,
and that was enough.
It's meant to be very suggestive, but he's done these sort of seminars, and what's shocking is the seminars were then for another body that's funded by Arts Council England, so it's like this double whammy.
Why does it need researching for whose benefit?
I don't know. You know what? But you know what? When I criticize this, right, I've actually had a gay man like tell me that we can't be friends anymore because he thinks I'm being homophobic because I don't. Because this is what this is this protects this crap research from criticism because they try to make it synonymous. You know, like I'm saying this is bollocks.
Yeah, but if
and
this
they try and make it like, oh, so you're a homophobe. Like, no, I just don't think taxpayers should be spending £190,000 on the stretching of the anal sphincter or whatever.
But there could be an equivalent heterosexual version.
Yeah.
Where, I don't know, a woman likes to walk a pig man and stretch his anus. I think you would be...
Yeah.
But I'm guessing you'd be equally like, this is bollocks.
Yeah, but the thing is that there won't be a heterosexual one because what the universities are trying to do is try to present this as like sort of their diversity, you know, that they're creating research that improves diversity and understanding.
Yeah, but what's the societal benefit? Do they have to put
Wow.
Do they have to put that in their application?
They do.
So I would say, what is the societal benefit from this piece of research? How is this benefit society? Do you know what? I'd do a vote. I'd say, and then allow people to vote. Should we fund this pig thing or the pensioner or pig? Pensioner or pig? And you just vote. I think you every time people say, yeah, can we have warm pensioners, please?
Yeah, we should have a TV show like I don't know, like a vote where they have to come up and fight, like the pensioner versus gay pig.
I mean, there might be some things, you know. Sorry, Granny.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, and you know, to caveat that the UK, all right, it's not all bad. It's funding huge amount of scientific research, like people trying to find cures for leukemia,
Great.
and like technological innovation, but you just can't trust the whole system because it commissions stuff like this. And there's also even like, you know, the whole net zero thing. If net zero is so fantastic and going to be so good for the British economy, it shouldn't need like insane amounts of subsidies. Like, sure, you know, subsidies can be important for a government to, but we're spending.
Hold on. Are people saying net zero is good for the economy?
Well, that's the argument. We'll win the race and then we will, but I think China's like beating our ass. Or whatever. But they've plugged so much of the UKRI has plugged so like tens of millions into net zero research, and not all of it. I mean, I couldn't tell because I'm not an engineer, so I can't look at these abstracts in the same way as like gay pig, masculinity. But you know, like you can't even tell. But if it's so good, and also there are corporations that are part of some of these grants because you can have project partners. That can mean different things. Sometimes that means that they are not getting any subsidies out of it, or they're putting money into the research. But sometimes they're getting, you know, the government grant is going out to them as much as the universities. So it's pretty nice subsidies.
Yeah. See, I wonder how you would actually deal with this. Would you just strip the budgets back, or if you had more oversight, they would just spend it on other stuff? Because when you talk, not you specifically, when they talk about this $22 billion black hole, I'm talking about you now. This $22 billion black hole, though, it's just like, well, how much of that black hole is this bollocks? How much is it?
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, it's almost like just everyone's kind of blind, you know, no one, you know, like you were talking about your business and how you do these audits.
Yes.
But we don't have the we're just kind of like, you know, we're not looking. That's like almost like where the black hole is, like everyone's brains.
But this is all just grants as well, right? This is.
Yeah.
You've been looking at just purely procurement and grants.
No, I've been looking at. I mean, charities are a complete hellhole.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I mean, the amount of taxpayer-funded charities will blow your mind. It's just. The thing that annoys me is that we fund left-wing charity because think tanks are registered charities mostly, you know, like Tufton Street and Actually, not all of them, but mostly they get registered as charities. And you constantly hear about the right-wing think tanks, like, who funds you? But they don't get taxpayer money.
Of course they don't.
Whereas the left-wing ones do. I mean, they really have a nerve, the left, because they, sometimes you see them actually on news night, some of these think tanks. There's one called, like, the Institute for Public Policy Research. It sounds so innocuous. It sounds fine. It sounds like, sounds very sensible. But it's getting just under £400,000 from taxpayers over the last few years. And they believe in, like, reparations. They, they believe in, like, sort of more offshore wind. And they're very, like, if you go on their website, they've got, like, strategies to defeat the far right.
Whereas schools, private schools, which had charitable status to reduce the cost of school fees, have now lost that, which has priced out a number of working people, working middle class, who now can't afford to send their kids to private school.
Yeah, it's absolutely shocking. There are two examples of the charities. I mean, there's so many of them are lobby groups. You have these think tanks that pretend to be neutral, that, they go on Newsnight and whoever's like, Victoria Derbyshire or whoever's like, so the Institute of Global Relations or whatever, like, what do you think about X? And you think you're getting, like, the independent expert, but they're actually a radical Marxist with taxpayer funding. And then you've got the NGOs, like the non-government. I mean, I mostly call these foundations. They're registered as charitable trusts, but the buzzword is becoming, like, NGO. And one example, and this is not unusual, is the Paul Hamlyn Trust. Have you heard of that?
No.
So it gives a really good example of how the government, and a lot of this happened under most of it happened under the Conservatives, but it's just been continued by Labour. But how they were always saying one thing and funding the opposite. So they were talking the talk on Rwanda and the borders, like, we're gonna stop the boats, and they had the flights all geared up. But then you have this NGO, this shadow state, like what Musk is exposing in the US, and the Paul Hamlyn Foundation is part of that. It's absolutely loaded, like, it has its own funds itself, but we were charged, rather, because we didn't know this was happening, about 1.4 million, just under, between 2019 to 23. And the Paul Hamlyn Foundation believes in open borders. It clearly says on its website, we envision a world where everyone is free to move, and it's pretty clear.
Mm-hmm.
And then with this grant, it then gives its money to things like Hope Not Hate Charitable Trust, which gets 585,000 from Paul Hamlyn. So we actually funded Hope Not Hate Charitable Trust as well, 140k, to go and lobby for its stuff. But so you think you're mad and you're already enraged, like, wow, why under Boris Johnson 2019 to 20 did we give Paul Hamlyn, Hope Not Hate, 140,000. How dare you? But then you also find out that we've given it to this Paul Hamlyn Foundation that's then given 585,000 to Hope Not Hate. So this is kind of how you can see how the funds are sort of channeled around. Like, you can't really get a sense of, like, how much. Even it's an indirect using of taxpayer funds. You might as well just cut out the middleman, but it means we basically funded both of them.
Do you think the ministers maybe just didn't have a clue a lot of this was going on? They're so busy with doing whatever the work they're doing in their local constituency, the demands of government, that these Quangos have just grown and ballooned, and they've just signed off budgets without having any idea.
Yeah, I think there's a mixture. I think we have way too many vain MPs. They're just in it. They just want to be celebs, basically, and they're not detail oriented. Like, like Rupert Lowe, for instance. Yeah, he's fantastic.
Love Rupert.
And he, because I know he was on your show recently, and he's really on it. He does his own freedom of information requests. He's really on it. He loves data. We need these people. We need, like, tens of them. But but I think a lot of them just couldn't be bothered. And you know what? To be fair to MPs, I do think they have too much on their plate.
Yeah, they do.
It's like they've got to be international relations experts and also the brief is just way too broad in scope. And then they're dealing with this whole new threat because they've got this shadow state going on, and a lot of them honestly could do with, you know, like seminars to help them understand I've thought about that before. Like, do people actually need to be trained in what to spot? Because it's like a threat to not only is it sort of the British wokies, but it makes us susceptible to foreign interference, you know, the flows of money. But I do think a lot of them are just in politics for. I mean, there's a lot of men that go into politics because, you know, they say it's showbiz for ugly people, and it's this sort of it's the sort of like you get these men that they're obviously a bit of a nerd at school and probably didn't get any girls, and you get like parliamentary.
Michael Gove, who's been stealing your content, maybe.
Oh my God, yeah. But
so, have you seen any ministers starting to engage with this content?
Yeah. Kemi's engaged with it. Kemi Badenoch.
Yeah, great.
People think that I mean, I love Kemi. I think she's really great. Like,
I saw she's on the speaker list at ARC next week.
Oh, but she's. People think she's like a WEF loving. Yeah, and I'm just saying this from my own experience of her, that before she was leader of the Conservatives, and she has taken interest in my work. She's been interested in it for one of the longest, and you know, supportive of it. So she genuinely really cares about this stuff. So she is getting stereotyped quite a lot, and I'm like, this is not because the public perception of people can be so different to what, you know, like how because I do talk to MPs, and you know, I've tried to get the word out as much as possible.
Well, that's why I was glad to see her go on trigonometry, because unfortunately, most politicians, you get this prepared version of them, this designed version of them by a PR team, which you can't hide on a podcast. And did you watch Kemi on trigonometry?
I need to watch it this week. It's been a bit.
Yeah, it's
been
worth
a bit mental, but
the second half's brilliant. You could tell she was a bit uncomfortable to begin with because she hasn't done something like this where you're fully exposed. And by the end, she was crushing it. She was really good. You got to hear a passionate response on ideas. She's pretty based on issues. You learned a bit about her personality. It was great. I think if she does a lot more of that, we'll find out more about her. But I'm really interested to see one of the ministers that react to this, but then the ones that are outraged enough to do something about it, and it only feels like someone like Rupert Lowe go, great, give me all of this. Charlotte, come in. I mean, we had him in here, and we were talking to him about the wind waste, and we were explaining to him that, oh, by the way, if you plug Bitcoin miners into that $1 billion you're paying to turn off the wind farm, you don't have to do that anymore. We've saved you £1 billion. He's like, great, come in and talk to the party about it. I feel like we need more people like that who seem to be doing the job for what you want a politician to be doing the job for.
Small print MPs.
Yeah.
And Kemi is a small print, as in, you know, people that want the detail. And but Nigel's given my work a plug in the last week. So, you know, I don't want to, like, sometimes people, when I've said I like Kemi and like think people are like, oh, don't you want to support? I always say like I'm an independent journalist, but if you ask me, like, you know, who's been really good for the exposure, it's Kemi. Rupert's really good, and Nigel's plugged my work. So anyone,
Angela hasn't, Keir Starmer hasn't.
None of them. No, I mean Rachel Reeves, if she wants, you know, I'll go and talk to her if she wants me to go and tell her what to cut, but I doubt she's going to.
Yeah,
somehow.
And I would have thought that. I mean, some previous administration Conservatives would probably be a bit embarrassed about this, like under their watch, that this has happened.
Yeah. It is embarrassing. But I think the Conservatives have a mixture of issues because, you know, they do have genuine Conservatives.
Yeah. And then they've got all the Lib Dems.
I know they've got this awful recruitment process. They've actually got these men at the top that decide they're like in charge of all the like who gets into the party. I don't know the specifics, but I know that it's coming from these architects of crappy diversity. But because there are real deal MPs in that, but they've just kind of, their process has knocked out apparently some good people. But we also have egomaniacs, but that's on every side of the party. And then I do think the Conservatives have had infiltrators, and I don't, I'm not talking about like kind of Tory wets, like.
Oh, this is the Lib Dems have got in there.
Yeah, but they've actually like, I mean, I have to be careful what I said, but like Chris Skidmore. Do you know Chris Skidmore?
I know the name.
So he's the man that signed net zero into law.
Okay.
When he was like the net zero energy minister or something like that. And he was a Conservative apparently. And then as soon as he is honestly, can I swear on your podcast?
You can say what the fuck you want.
He's such a wanker. He is. I actually hate him. He's such an awful person. So he basically he was like Mr. Second and Third Jobs when he worked. So this is the guy that signed net zero. You know, the law we all freaking hate.
Yeah.
And while he was doing that, he was making 80k per year, very minimal time spent for this decarbonising sort of renewables firm. And he also had some role like he had all these advisory roles with like higher education. So the first time I ever kind of sniffed him out was because he was tweeting a lot about why we need net zero. And to me, it just screamed like, you know, if you see someone being that passionate about something that's a bit boring, you're like, money.
How often are you finding yourself wanting to say things, tweet things, write things, and you're like, oh, if I put that out there, I might get a lawsuit against me? Are you having to censor yourself much? I say this to somebody.
Yeah.
I was sued in the High Court. I had a 5-year lawsuit for calling someone a fraud, and they turned out to be a fraud. It nearly bankrupted me.
God,
and I self-censor all the time now. Like I've said something about Dale Vince. We're probably going to edit. Dale, I'm editing it out. You can't sue me. I'm going to edit it out because I'm like, I know he's going to sue me. And it's just like, I really wish we had some form of, real free speech. When people say we have free speech, you go, well, no, we fucking don't.
At Ledden, we built the best Bitcoin-backed loan platform in the world. Proven, trusted, growing. Ledden's proven track record speaks for itself. Visit ledden.io/Mr. Obnoxious to get started. Ledden, there is no second best. Ledden is not regulated in the United Kingdom. Any credit products or virtual asset services provided by Ledden are not subject to UK regulatory protections. Please consider the risks associated with virtual assets and consult a financial advisor before making any decisions.
I know, it's terrifying.
Do you find yourself censoring yourself because of this?
I don't know, because I'm quite a gobby woman, and in a way, I almost like, it just all comes out. So it's kind of, I do worry because I'm a bit like impulsive sometimes. Like I just let it all out.
Yeah.
But I am careful about some things. Like I'd like to write more about Dale Vince and the fact that he worked for Carol Vorderman on this like political campaign, and I'd like to, I actually just honestly I just want to write about that.
Yeah.
And not say that they were, but I don't touch him because of the threat of being sued. Because he seems to take people to court for like a sentence, So it's not like I'm going to write anything.
The problem with libel laws is that, having been through it, is that they can kill you in the process. They can run up the cost. They can challenge everything. You have this process called disclosure.
Oh, where you have to show everything.
And which is easy to lie on and just not provide. But they can themselves provide such a huge amount of data that my lawyer, so when mine happened, to review the disclosure data, the quote for that part alone was hundreds of thousands of pounds. My legal fees were £1.2 million in the end.
Whoa.
But they spent something like 3.6 million. If I'd lost the case, I have to pay their legal fees. So this kind of attrition thing that happens, if someone comes after you, you might even be like, great, I'll go for this. What you don't realize is when the attrition starts, they can ramp up their costs really quickly, which you're liable for if you lose. And if you run out of money yourself, you then concede, and then you concede and you lose your costs and you have to pay their costs, and before you know it, you're bankrupt. It's absolutely shocking. It can be completely weaponized by the rich, the oligarchs, the lawyers, the people who just grift off this.
Yeah.
You cannot have a libel lawsuit that costs 20-30 grand. It will cost hundreds of thousands, if not millions. So if Dale comes for you, you can't fight it.
Yeah. It is. Yeah, it's terrifying. It's especially when it's really scary. I mean, I genuinely, like, there was a time where I started doing all my deep state stuff and people, like, well-meaning people were messaging me like, be safe, be safe, be safe. And that freaked me out as well, because I lived on my own at the time and I was just like,
I think the safety thing's probably more people coming after you through the legal system. I can't remember her name, but there was the lady the oligarchs went after, and they tried to destroy her life financially. There's an attempt now to get slap laws in to prevent all this. That's the thing I always say to people. Like I like to say, there's things I just do not say anymore because I don't want a lawsuit. Because you don't want to be bankrupt. Like, we went through it as a family. We actually at one point we had to have a meeting about the process of selling my business, selling my house, and not being able to be a director and having to move into rented accommodation. I mean, it's terrifying.
oh my God.
And it's rich people who get to lie and abuse the system.
It is
There's another
scary.
scandal for you.
I know. Weirdly, my parents are actually lawyers, so they're not libel lawyers, but it's it's great having lawyer parents, but obviously they're not libel. So I really don't want to get anyone like on my case, but also like they're quite cautious. They're like, be careful, but because they know the other end.
I bet they're secretly like badass as well. So the thing I was going to when I asked you before about how wide does this go? You mentioned going into charities, but I can't help but think, well, if there's this much waste in the grants themselves, how much waste is there just in the general operations of government departments? How bloated is the staffing? How bloated are their wages? How bloated are the pensions? How bloated is their equipment? How much waste is there through all of government? And I can't help but think there must be just endless waste.
Yeah, I think it would be tens, hundreds of billions, basically. Because also when you're, it's not like with a private business when you have to keep costs low, like you were saying, and you have to be smart about the more something gets funded from someone else's pocket, that you lose incentives. They might think, oh, we don't want to tax people, we've got to keep it but they're not going to be like, we need to get, or they don't have business experience to work out how to hire the best contractors, get a good deal, because some of them have just worked in politics all their life. So I think, it's just extraordinary that all this stuff has happened within a media narrative of being fed austerity, being told that how awful austerity, and I've had some people say to me like, oh, but there was the economic, and I'm no economist, but it just, like, looking at this stuff, I just think you listen to how they put it in Parliament and they act as if it's been like a Dickensian period where everyone's, but then you just know there's this whole patronage system of funding people to study cisgenderism and all this crap, and you just think, what is?
Are there any other weird ones in there?
I've got a whole. I can read you some of the ones for the small. So, like, even though we've been trying to apparently stop the boats, there's all these crazy grants for like refugee communities. Like, I'm not like the witch in Snow White or anything like. I believe we should help people to a degree, but then you've got so this is university grants, 200,000 decolonising fashion and textiles, designed for cultural sustainability with refugee communities.
Oh no, what does that mean?
Adopting. I watched a bit of it, and they're just kind of sewing and stuff, just like, and then there's one at SOAS, which is
what's that?
Which is
80 pensioners.
I love your son doing that. I love the maths in this family. It's just so in your family.
That's all I could think about on the way in. It was like the pensioners.
Yeah.
If we cannot keep the pensioners warm, why can we fund pig masculinity? It just fucking sends me mad, Charles.
I know, it's heartbreaking because it's so upsetting.
Yeah.
Because you just think of like a really vulnerable person, and then that this is going on, and it's just.
Well, it's a bit like that thing the other. Did you see the guy put the FOIA request into the Yorkshire police for their DI staffing or EDI. Why do we call it EDI in our country, by the way?
Terrible maths. 800 pensions.
800 pensioners.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so we like math, we're just not good at it in our
Oh
family.
no, I'm very impressed.
Do you remember that Yorkshire Police thing? Do you remember we got that tweet up? The guy did the request on Yorkshire Police. Because I thought about this in a similar scenario with the police, in that how many frontline... Because we don't see police anymore. You go into Bedford Town Centre, there's just crackheads everywhere, making everyone's life a misery, going into stores, stealing. They've actually... A lot of the store owners have funded their own private radio network to say, crackhead 6 is coming, just like, prepare. And we've got no front... Like, why can't we have a permanent base of 2... police officers in the town just protecting the shops, and then you start to see the funding for this kind of bullshit. Did you find it?
No.
It was something like £1 million. There was a head of DI, head of DI marketing. It was just bollocks, just more bollocks, waste of money.
So much. It's kind of like the Maslow hierarchy of needs, and you at the bottom you've got your basic, and then you move up, and then eventually you self-actualize.
Yeah.
But you have to get everything else before you can move up.
Here we go. Can you click on the image, Con? Right, so this is it. Head of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, 91 grand. Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Manager, 57,000. 3 times Diversity, Equality, Inclusion Officers at 45 each. 2 Administration Assistants at 30 grand each. A DI Comms and Marketing Lead, 53. And I mean, you just go down that list, right? And then the other one, the External Provider for external training bodies and courses for equity and diversity training, 361,000. I mean, look, I know there's this idea that the police is institutionally racist. No, there's just racist morons everywhere. I get that. That exists. But I think I don't really know anyone racist anymore. I know it exists, but most people have got a brain.
Yeah.
Do you really, really need to... Because that's £1 million there. How many frontline officers could that fund? What are they, 60 grand?
I know. And also,
13?
like, what no one's talking about is that a lot of ethnic minority communities getting really hurt at the moment. Like, if you look at who's been killed in London, it's a lot of young black boys, and Notting Hill. There was something near of a cover up to that, because you had the woman that stepped in a fight and she got stabbed in the thigh and she bled to death. She had a young child.
Jesus.
You had a chef that just got randomly slain. There was a black man in a wheelchair that got stabbed to death. I remember seeing it. I was like, in another era like this, we'd be talking about this for days. Like, someone who just went out, he was obviously like a lovely man, and just got stabbed to death. And then it's like, anyway, let's moving on. And what I noticed Sadiq Khan did, because people talk about the Notting Hill Carnival now because it tends to attract violence every year, and people were really kicking off about it and worried, and the kind of progressive liberal media were trying to make it sound like, we like people being like racist by it. What's your problem with the Notting Hill Carnival? Why that one and not others? Literally because it is incredibly violent.
Yeah.
But in their like kind of savior way, what's so appalling about it is they let ethnic minorities get slain, because people that could benefit with policing. Like, are you telling me that, like, all of us benefit, every skin color would benefit from better policing? Like, the people that you are pretending to stand up for are getting, like, Hackney, the amount of killings, like a show of like young...
I follow an account on Twitter. It's what is it? It kind of reports on all kind of crime in London. So you see...
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember the name.
Is it the London...
Yes.
Yes. London crime.
And then every now and again, one will pop up and I'll click on it, and then I'll go through and see everything recently. You get the videos of people just walking into Tesco's, taking shit out, and then stabbings. And it's clear that the vast majority of stabbings, when they show pictures, is a black kid killing a black kid. You see the odd one where it's others, or a white couple have killed their baby, whatever, but it's predominantly as that. And that is a problem. Why can't we talk about it?
There's a big problem with young... I mean, I think there's a general big problem with young boys in London.
What's this? Notting Hill Carnival stats: 320 arrests, 5 stabbings, 1 acid attack, 2 in life-threatening condition, 35 police injuries, 67 knife arrests, 12 sexual assaults, 94 drug offences, 47 emerged. I mean, I just wouldn't go to Notting Hill Carnival because of this.
I get scared about my, like, but I do actually think there's something to be said for, like, because I remember, like, not that I'm like a young boy growing up, but I remember I grew up in London as a child, and I remember, like, because I've got ADHD, and I know a lot of people think that's like, but I was really bad at school until we moved to the countryside when I was 13, and I was just running around doing constant sports, and then I suddenly became very academic, and because I had all the energy like teased out of me. And I think, I'm not saying this is the total picture of London, but I think you've actually got a lot of young boys living in like sort of deprived, like, or mixture of areas. They are so young men have so much testosterone and energy, and then they're having these big, this is my, you know, kind of progressive, kindly analysis of it, but like, some of them I just think they need, you know, they need to go to like boot camp or something. You know, they need to go, and they need discipline, and they need that. And there's been this whole cultural, like, oh, like the youth club, and we got to sit down with them, and this kind of like feminization of, I'm like, young men evolved, right? Like they're the most easy to radical. You know, whenever you look at who terrorists are, right, it's always men in their early 20s, like that, around that kind of shipping point, because they're the most easy to radicalize, because in evolution, like, they had to be ready to go to war, so they have to have that blueprint. And you've got all these men that
are ready to go to war.
Yeah, and they have nothing, like, and hopefully they don't have to go to war, but they need people to, like, you know, be like a military leader.
Get them boxing.
Get them doing boxing, exercise. Exercise is so important for discipline. And I think there's a real big problem. And Labour would just be like, yeah, this is why we shouldn't shut the youth clubs. And like, they need to have, like, I don't know, like a day out going roller skating or something. But like, no, they need to go to like, yeah, that's why boxing is so amazing. I mean, I used to box. I love boxing.
He boxes.
Do you?
Yeah. Good little fight. He's got his first fight coming up.
Oh my God, you're mad.
Yeah. He's massive though. Look at the size of him.
Oh, what about you break your nose? They always get broken noses, boxers.
It's part of it.
Yeah, he's going to break noses.
Scary. Actually, it's good if you're tall, isn't it? Because I remember, at one point I seriously thought, like, I wanted to box and you know, like, do a fight. I remember they said to me, they were like, "Are you having a fucking laugh?" And then, but I was really like serious. But I realized that because, you know, because of the weight competition, because I'm quite like chunky. I'm not, but you know, I'm not like a skinny mini. I'm a short girl, so I realized that because of the weight, I'll probably go with someone quite tall. And then they'll like just punt, you know, they'll just win.
He has the advantage because he's tall and can be slim.
Yeah, because you could end up against a short guy that's stocky, right? And then
he has the reach. Just well, he does it to me. He beats me up.
Are you going to starve before the match?
I've been starving for the past month.
It's been interesting to watch. The boy can eat, and he's been so disciplined. I'm sitting there eating a can of Pringles, and he's there eating a broccoli.
Is this your first fight?
How much have you cut so far?
Stone and a bit.
Yeah.
What, just like not it? Because the water is always like how you get it out at the end, isn't it? Like,
that's the end bit. You just
and then you quickly eat like a munchie.
Yeah.
Not a crunchy bar.
Yeah.
You're so brave. I've seen. I don't want to like. Well, you guys must have, obviously you're sports guys. So
yeah, we watch a lot of the boxing.
Because I've been to a few boxing matches.
Yeah.
I mean, I love them. It's like,
who have you been to see fight?
Well, I mean, just local ones in Dalston. But I've seen like blood splatter and like kind of, they just get knocked out. It's funny because when they come on, you can kind of tell sometimes. Like,
have you ever been to a big fight?
No.
Yeah, you need to go to a big one. It's a great event. Really? Yeah, we've got the Ben Eubank one coming up at Tottenham Stadium. That'll be a good one. Been out to Vegas for a couple of them.
Because the kind of local guys like don't like them, so they think it's all a bit corrupt and stuff. So.
I mean, it totally is corrupt, but it's just a great event. Yeah,
I would like to go. Yeah,
if you can get to a Vegas one, unfortunately it's all moved to Saudi now.
Yeah,
but you used to get the big Vegas fights. I saw Ricky Hatton fight Floyd Mayweather there. It's my first fight. It was incredible, and I went out to a Tyson Fury one against who does he Tyson Fury fight? It was his fourth fight. What's his name? You know I'm terrible with names. He fought him 3 times. But Wilder, Deontay Wilder, you'd love it. It's corrupt.
Yeah.
It's totally corrupt, and you don't know. It's all about the money, but it's worth going to. Maybe you should get back in the ring.
I love boxing.
Get on the undercard of Confight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The girl?
You go and fight Rachel Reeves.
Yeah, you're so brave. The nose thing is what worries me. But I really miss it. It's the great exercise. You're so fit when you do boxing. It's like...
I'm so unfit. I'm getting old. Any more weird ones you want to tell me before I move on? Because I think people listening will love the weirdest ones.
There's one, dancing dialogues. That was for refugees and diasporic communities where they negotiated their embodied identity. They're all just really similar. There's one that was called the Abundance Project, and long story short, it's got 1 million, and it was basically like, I watched a video for it, and it's just this woman, Black, minority, ethnic and refugee communities who live in poorer southwest London boroughs and other cities are at the greatest risk of poor mental health. However, they are least likely to engage with cultural and green community assets or social prescribing. And so this project is basically...
It's all keyword bingo.
Yeah, it's basically just like people like going to the park. 1 million to prove that people like going to the park. It's just, you're right. It's just keyword bingo because they just say, and I think and the kind of, this is another way they protect themselves from, because it's so Emperor's New Clothes. It's just bollocks being dressed up, and it's like another layer of not getting accountability because it's meant to make people feel like they can't possibly, because they haven't got a PhD, they couldn't possibly understand this green abundance project, and then they won't want to scrutinize it and they won't want to look into it, and it has worked quite well actually.
Do you remember that guy who did the Time Waster Diaries? Did you ever see that? Try and search Dave. Someone try and find the Time Waster Diaries. This guy, I remember years ago, I'm sure he's worked in advertising. He used to just write letters to places to waste their time. Is it the Time Waster Diaries? I think he did one about a spider.
Robin Cooper.
I can't remember. It was a book he wrote about, and he used to write to random places, absolute nonsense.
That's so funny.
No, I don't think it's going to be. Scroll down. No, I don't know if it's that. Search for Time Waster Diaries and go for Google Images because I'll know it. Or Time Waster. Yeah, it's that one. Those letters. Yeah, it's that guy. So what he used to do is just like write these random letters to places, like, and just make complaints and get them to write back and go on. I'm just thinking with this, maybe you should just like apply for some grants under a pseudonym.
Yeah, I know.
Like the most ridiculous grant you could possibly go for.
I should. Well, some people have actually done that, to be fair.
Have they?
Yeah, it was called, I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. But there was a hoax. It was Helen Pluckrose and James Lindsay did it. There was
the American.
Yeah, there was 3 of them that did it, and they sent in like these, and they got signed off. Like your son could probably search for it if you type hoax Helen Pluckrose and James Lindsay. They should come up.
I think James Lindsay blocked me on Twitter.
Oh no,
he's a bit too conservative for me. Okay, so.
But yeah, there's just
endless.
It's just mapping it out is going to take. I mean, these are just like a small sample. It's going to take ages.
What would you like to see happen now off the back of this? Like, it's out there now. People are talking about it. I put that tweet out. I didn't even realise it was you running the account, but I took that tweet out the other day saying, I'm patiently waiting for UK Doge. And endless comments underneath, tagging you and tagging UK Doge and tagging the procurement files. It's like, it's out there in the psyche now. Like, what do you want to see happen? Yeah,
so I actually work with procurement files. So we're a team.
Okay,
we're
great.
Doge UK. So for the last few months, we've been trying to work, like trying to build, like my website's going to launch sort of this week. But I basically want to audit all of this, map the deep state, and then feed it to people that are going to win the election to take to Parliament and pull out and try and shape policy essentially.
Wow, that would be huge.
Yeah, I mean, I want I want it out. Like, and I'm not an MP, but I think, like, I know people in reform, and I know conservatives like him, and I want to give as much information as possible to help people do that. And
if you map the entire deep state out, Quango after Quango, the people, the connections, I envisage those sort of 3D models where the money flows are. If that becomes public, and that is taken on board by conservatives and reform, who I believe would, I think there'll be such a visceral reaction from the public that there would be low to no chance of Labour winning a re-election.
no,
They would themselves have to think about this, but they're not going to, because it would be ideologically against them to deal with this.
well, they'll try to rig the elections in terms of, not rig, but like they'll give the vote to young people. They'll try and flood the country with immigrants and they'll try and give.
Do you think that they would do that as a voting tactic?
100%. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
They'll do anything. That's all the left want. They just constantly think about the thing that's so worrying about them is they don't. I think they're more bothered about tactics to win rather than creating popular policies that would create natural support. Rather than being like, yeah, this is very popular, let's try and really go. They just think people are wrong, so how do we beat them? Like, how do we make sure that we stamp out, they jailed people for tweets. So they really are wrong uns. So I think we need to sort of, I'm very inspired by Javier Milei in Argentina. He's my hero, actually. He's like the original.
I've seen your T-shirt.
I love my T-shirt. He's the original Doge.
Have you been out there?
What in?
To
No,
Buenos
I
Aires?
want to go though.
So me and Kurt, when were we there, Kurt? We went out 2 years and made a documentary
Wow.
ahead of the election.
Amazing.
We interviewed his economic advisor, and we, it was,
You were really ahead of the game, yeah.
well, no, I'm in the world of Bitcoin, and the Bitcoiners are true libertarians at heart. Yeah,
Really?
they're ahead of the curve on all this financial stuff. They know how fucked government is, and they've just put all their money in Bitcoin and said, "See you later." And as part of that, Milei is kind of a bit of a hero because he's kind of libertarian. He's not full libertarian, but he's definitely got libertarian principles. And so we were aware. We went out there just to make a film to see what it was about. Very cool. Weird thing about it is it's a place of high inflation, but unless you know there's inflation, you don't see it. Everything seems perfectly normal, which is weird. But I know he's had a very positive effect on the country. But there are people gunning for him because he's stripped back. I'll tell you one story. It's hilarious. So we were walking around Buenos Aires with this guy Juan, and there were guys who were recobbling the street. It was really interesting. He pointed out and said, "Yeah, they're recobbling the street." I was like, "That's cool." He's like, "Yeah, they do this every year." I was like, "What?" He said, "Yeah, no, every year they get to recobble the street, so they've got employment, and then so they vote for the Peronista was the historical party, the commies. I can't remember. I could have that wrong. But he said that's how they secure the votes. And then as we went around Argentina, we started to realize this network of securing votes. They're securing votes in certain neighborhoods, there's certain industries, certain jobs, and he's just going to strip the whole thing out. But now what they're doing is they're funding activists. They will buses of activists in to start protests in the city against Milei. So it's crazy.
Oh God, the actor. Yeah, no, he's really. You know what I like about him is that he says things like "Long live freedom, God damn it," and the thing that the right or the normies could really take off him is he goes on the offense, whereas we're always on, oh, we don't want to be the nasty party. Whereas like when people used to interview Milei before he became president, he'd be like, "Fuck socialism, it sucks ass," and he just.
I know the video in that interview.
Yeah.
Where he's like, "You have to kill them. Don't give them any air."
Yeah, he was just like, he's not like, well, it's a nice idea, but he's like, yeah, bloody sucks. Yeah, and it's like we need to be like that, and I actually think I've always thought conservatives should try and own the nasty part. They should be like, like big nasty, like we are the nasty party. We love work. They should own it like that, because all this kind of trying to be nicey nice, which ultimately true conservatives do believe their movement is, because it means people have more disposable income and happier lives. But they've got to be soldiers. They can't be like I don't know. It's all just
No, I know what you mean.
it's so wet and like just. Ugh. But I think I do think that if something, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, obviously with the US, that's very exciting for Britain. People are getting re-energized with this whole stuff. But I do think that I kind of joke that we will have a peasants' revolt. If
I think
something
we're having
doesn't,
a peasants' revolt.
yeah, because people have got so used to the state like leeching off them, and but there's a point. I mean, it's like a contract, and they work for us. And I think people really have to remember, like, you know, if they don't do their jobs and if they start breaching, you know, if you read their job description, it's like they work for UK citizens. If they're like now the MP for Gaza, or like, you know, there's so many of them just who talk now more about international affairs than actually Britain, then we just got to dig out the job description. Like, this is your job. Do you want to resign? Because I'm not sure we should be paying for you if you're going to breach the terms of the conditions. And I think we've got to start being a bit more like Ally McBeal about it. Like,
But I think it's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think of the amount of money that was funded through the Biden administration or through the US to try and secure that election for Kamala, and they still failed. You think how much hatred that was funded against Trump. You think of what they did with the Hunter Biden laptop and then the Russia. They did everything to stop this guy, and still enough of the people that went to this country went, I'm fucking fed up of this shit. I don't want any more of this bollocks. We want something new. And Trump just came in, and hopefully he'll deliver. I mean, I really hope he delivers, and I really hope some of the journalists aren't ideological and are objective enough with him and, you know, challenge him. But there's this energized population here, like, hold on, I think I want some of that.
Yeah.
It reminds me, it's that, you've seen Jerry Maguire?
Yeah.
You know the end bit where the agent, Tom Cruise, goes and hugs him, and the other guy's, the agent's with him, with the other guy, and he's like, you can tell he's really jealous. He thinks, I want some. I think a lot of people here want that.
Yeah.
And then we're fucking fed up with this shit.
You know, you say that to me, but I just remember the bit where he goes to Renée Zellweger, and he's like, what's the romantic speech he makes? That's what I.
Oh, and then she says,
I remember.
"You had me at hello."
Yeah, that's like what the woman remembers. Like, oh, when he comes through the door.
But I think there is that desire. We still have a slight problem here. Is that they, let's give them the benefit of doubt. Like at least 40% of the media coverage in the US, maybe 50% with Twitter, was Trump, and 50% was anti-Trump. Here, we've still got, I don't know, 70-80%, which is still anti-Trump. I mean, I don't know if you watched Question Time last night, but Matt Goodwin was on, and he did a brilliant job of just, you know, trying to, reset the thoughts on the ideas of Trump. But everybody else there is pretty much anti-Trump, and we've still got that issue here. But I know enough people have, even if they don't have to be pro-Trump, you just have to be, I'm fucking fed up of this shit. I'm fed up of high tax, fed up of you wasting my money, I'm fed up of people getting stabbed, fed up of the NHS working, and if anything, maybe Rupert Lowe, he's kind of doing that nasty thing in a blunt way.
Yeah, I like the cut of his. I liked he was on with Ash Sarkar on Politics Live, and they were talking about NHS spending on translation costs, and Ash was sort of like, yeah, like we do need it, blah blah blah. I really don't like her, by the way, and he was just like, I don't care, and I just thought, I just freaking love this.
What was that tweet you found yesterday? Connor was like, Connor goes to me, guys, I love Rupert Lowe. Did you see this tweet? And I hadn't seen it. Do you know what I mean? It's absolutely brilliant. But Rupert Lowe's appealing to a 20-year-old there.
Yeah.
You know, it's starting to happen because what have they got? They can't afford a house. There's not jobs available. I just think, I don't know. I'm really optimistic. I think it will come through reform. I'm not saying I'm going to be a reform voter because I'm intrigued by Kemi. I wouldn't vote Labour, of course, because I'm not an idiot. But I'm intrigued to see what they can do, because if not, well, everyone's going to leave. Where's this tweet? Oh, yeah. I'm incredibly offended at what this Labour MP just said about me in Parliament. He states that I would sack every DI officer in the NHS. Total nonsense. Let's be accurate. I would sack every single DI officer across the entire public sector.
I know, it's so funny.
I think we need
That's
more
the
of
thing,
this.
you've got to go on the offence. You've got to be like, everyone's been too apologetic for years, but we've just let they're just bullies, you know, they're just horrible bullies.
Well, I think council culture's started to fail.
Oh,
like,
God,
I'm not.
awful.
Are you bothered in it? I'm not bothered. I can't really be cancelled. I can be arrested, but I can't be cancelled. I don't give a fuck.
We can only be cancelled by oligarchs and libel suits. That's the real cancellation.
Yeah, but
isn't it?
you can't I can put out a podcast and say
Yeah.
what I want anyway, and you can put out an article and
Yeah.
say what you want. And I think that
the worst is definitely cleared.
and that decentralization of media,
Yeah.
I think has allowed people to challenge this a bit more.
Yeah.
Thank Elon Musk for some of that as well. I feel like we've covered loads. Is there anything I've not asked you wish I had? Is there any part of this we've not covered? Because I'm conscious of our time.
I don't think. No, I think it's all very... If anyone wants to read it, it's all online at my Substack.
We'll share that all out. How can people actually support you and help you? So if people want to back this and
They can take out a paid subscription. They're really great. I've got buy me a coffee, and I have, I do make bits and bobs of income, but I mostly make my income through the subscription and those channels. So that's the best way to fund it. But we're just trying to work out the funding model at the moment, because obviously I write about who funds you, so I have to think quite carefully about how to actually fund myself. But people have been amazingly supportive recently and throughout. So just that is really helping me research and
recent uptick.
Yeah. Actually, in the last, with all the stuff online, the Spectator stuff, that actually brought a lot more people to my website.
That's such a shame, because actually, do you know what? I kind of don't mind the Spectator in that they once wrote this article I disagreed with, and they went, okay, write your own version. I did, and they didn't. The editorial on it was minor. It was a few kind of grammatical things that they just said change, and they published it. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And the same with the FT, and they diluted it so much. I said, actually, there's no point publishing this now, because what you've changed it to is bollocks. So I actually quite liked the fact they did that. And then I've seen they've just been nicking your content.
Yeah,
and basically,
it's been a bit of an onslaught the last week, because what bothers me is that I'm often I jokingly call myself Shazandra, like Cassandra, because I just sometimes I think I spot something really early on, and then I pitch it like mad, and I think the mainstream don't really know what to do with me. They're like, she's a bit, we don't really get her, don't really know and they're not interested. I'm like, no, this is really going to be the next big thing. This is very important, very big scandal. They don't give a crap, because I'm not what they, and then
can't put you in a box.
And then as soon as the people that took it, the people that are trying to emulate it are like Guido Fawkes, and that annoyed me, because I'd actually spoken to the guy that edits it, and I'd always been really, I actually asked him for coffee. I've always been really open with him, and he just didn't tell me, and then Spectator just basically most of the examples they use were ones in my Substack. So with that, I don't want to sound really whiny about it, but
it's a big story, and they know they can run with it and keep working. And
it just happens in independent journalism. You're too weird, you're too niche. No one's interested in that until they are, and then they run with it themselves, the people that told you it wasn't a thing.
But there is a benefit. There's this flip side thing in that they will always be Spectator, and you'll always be Charlotte Gill, and your reputation and public profile will always grow, and people would rather give you money than them eventually. You always end up beating them.
It's been one of the I really didn't expect it, but people have been absolutely lovely. They stood up for me en masse. They were like, why have you done this? And people have given me more subscriptions this week, and I really didn't, and that has just been quite it's really restored the faith, and it's very nice. So
the attrition rate on these things is quite low anyway, so if you just keep doing it, I'm sure it'll go very well for you.
The thing is, I'm so ultimately I'm a journalist, so I make my money that way, but it is my love. This is, that I want to save Britain. So this isn't just a passing phase for me. This is I've given a year and a half of my life to it, and I'm not going to stop. So
well, listen, do it, crush it. Anything we can do to help, give me a shout. I'd love to do this again whenever you want.
Thank you for being a founding member. I'm very grateful.
No, not a problem. We will happily continue to support you, and I'll continue to support you. I just think it's really fucking cool what you're doing, and I, like you, just we came back to do this podcast here because we think UK's going to shit, and we want to. If we can do anything in this room to help it, we will. So I think there's a growing force of people
Yeah. Afuera, we got to shout. You know, like Javier Milei.
Get a chainsaw.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, keep crushing. Listeners, go subscribe to Charlotte's Substack. It's amazing. Good luck. Thank you, everyone, for listening.